chemical method for stripping CO2 out of ambient air. Right now, concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere is over 400 parts per million, record levels, and it hasn't been as high in millions of years. And all of the carbon that's captured comes through contactors such as this. You see these units up here. This is a ducted box. Inside each of these boxes is a chemical filter that has what are called amines inside. Amines will create a weak chemical bond with CO2 as it gets drawn through the box. You can see here there's a little bit of a design feature that allows for airflow. Inside that there's a fan. And over the course of about 3 to 4 hours, those amine filters will fully saturate in CO2. How do we know that they're CO2 saturated? We have a sensor in the beginning that measures the input CO2 stream at 400 ppm. And on the back, it initially upon startup will be 0 ppm. There'll be no CO2 coming through. After about 3 or 4 hours, all of a sudden the input concentration and the output concentration match. And that's how we know the filter has been fully saturated. The box is then closed. A vacuum is pulled on the chamber, and the inside is heated to 100 degrees Celsius. That is the temperature of boiling water. It's enough to break the chemical bonds between the amines and the CO2 inside of this vacuum. Now the chamber fills up with CO2, and it can be pumped out into a tank. So that process is, and I'm going to give you a little bit more of a video just to show you kind of what this facility looks like, how big it is for scale. So as you can see, there are multiple rows of contactors. This facility here is located just outside of Zurich in Hinwil, Switzerland. As you can see, set amongst the backdrop of the Swiss Alps, it is quite beautiful, quite picturesque. A stark difference from the landscape that you would see at a diamond mining location, for instance. Once the CO2 is then captured, it's taken to the next plant for methanation. So methanation is the process by which we turn CO2 into CH4. I'm going to show you some of what that looks like, just to give you some insight into how big that machine is and what it looks like here. You'll see one of the operators working on an automated control panel. This machine will typically run in a semi-autonomous fashion. It does not require a lot of manual labor with it. As we come through, you can see here one of our major piping exchanges with different control valves. And most importantly, you'll see a heat bag over here just to the left of center in the photo. This insulated bag houses the heat exchange reactor, which is where the magic happens. This is where CO2 gas in the presence of a pure H2 stream hydrogen that is created from the electrolysis of water mixes in the presence of a catalyst. The catalyst helps accelerate the chemical conversion of CO2 into CH4. So essentially, really all we need in order to make these diamonds are air and water. After the reaction, you get high purity CH4 and a little bit of additional water that gets recycled back into the process. Over here is a bank of electrolyzers. You can see each one of these machines is fed with hydrogen, and inside that machine, fed with water. Inside that machine, an electric current is applied. This splits the water molecule into its disparate parts, oxygen and hydrogen, and that high purity hydrogen is used as a feedstock in the chemical reaction. This is a kind of zoomed out view of what the reactor looks like and the filling station over here in this gray container on the right. And just to give you some insight into kind of what it looks like. This is the main essentially manifold where all of the lines for our recirculation loop and our inputs like hydrogen and CO2 all piped together. And then once they're piped together, this is a shot actually of the machine without its external cladding. So this is a containerized design. It's a standard 20-foot shipping container, which allows this machine to be moved anywhere in the world where carbon's needed to be captured for diamonds. Now I'm going to skip ahead and show the filling station. So these vessels over here, these tanks, are specialized for international use. Every country around planet Earth has different specifications for safety protocols. And this is the filling station where this ultra high purity CH4 gas ultimately gets pumped into. Now these tanks, I'll actually come back to this board and stop my screen share. These tanks are located actually on the other side of this wall over here. They pipe into the different lines that you see up here on the wall and ultimately come down into this machine. This machine here is called the chemical vapor deposition reactor. And this reactor enables us to take that CH4 gas. It gets pumped into a chamber that has a vacuum hold on it. And that gas is then excited with essentially a very high power microwave. It's called a magnetron, and it is tuned to the frequency, resonant frequency of hydrogen. It excites the hydrogen, and the hydrogen then breaks from the carbon in that CH4 molecule and excites into a plasma state. This serves as dual purpose. One, it allows the carbon to precipitate to the bottom of the chamber, and two, it heats the chamber. At the bottom of that floor, there's a build plate that has small diamond seeds on it. Those small diamond seeds ultimately serve as the blueprint that these individual carbon atoms can attach to grow the diamond matrix. This happens over the course of 4 weeks, just about, sometimes a little longer if we're growing larger stones, sometimes a little shorter if we're growing shorter stones. And what we are left with at the end of the day is a large piece of grown diamond, solid diamond material that can then be shaped by artisan polishers into beautiful gemstones. So with that said, we're going to start this machine up right now. I'm going to move the camera a little bit closer. One of our technicians is giving me the sign that he needs to go and turn on the all clear light. There are safety protocols in place here at the laboratory to ensure that none of the explosive gases are plumbed through any of the lines, whether that be hydrogen or CH4 without the ventilation system turned on. You may be able to hear a little bit of airflow in the background right now. That is actually our air purification system. This is an ISO certified clean room environment. So there's no air particulate. In fact, it's quite clean air that we're breathing here. That beeping noise that you hear right now is the all clear. So in just a moment, he's going to come in the door here and give me the sign that we're ready to go. All right, we're ready to go. So Edwin here is going to turn on the reactor. So I'll turn it a little wider so that we can see what that process looks like. And then as this chamber ignites, I'm going to pull the camera a little closer, and we'll be able to see the beautiful glowing plasma ball that I just mentioned earlier. So as you can see, there's a control panel. This control panel controls all of the inputs to the reaction, how much gas, what the flow rates are, the amount of vacuum that is being pulled on the chamber, the amount of power being delivered to the magnetron to excite the hydrogen. It's going to take just a minute or so for this to get started up. This actually might be a really good place to hit pause and open up the floor for questions while we allow the system to ignite.
Guys, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put it in the chat. He's gonna be answering the questions. Anyone? Yeah, we got our first question asking how many diamond can you make per month?
So that's a great question. And ultimately, it is driven by how much material is on the build platform and what the arrangement of the seeds are. If you're growing smaller diamonds, you can grow a larger number of diamonds. For instance, a 7mm seed might yield out about 25 pieces of rough material at the end of that month. And then from that rough material, you can cut either 25 large stones and sometimes a larger number of smaller stones. If we were growing perhaps maybe an 11mm seed, then there's going to be fewer, probably about 9. Those will yield out larger stones upwards of maybe 5 carats versus a 7mm, which may yield out about 1 to 1.5 carats. So it really ultimately depends on how you configure it and what your runtime, your desired runtime is, and what your desired yield is. 1 carat diamond typically is in about that 4-week range. You can grow faster or you can grow slower depending on certain desired qualitative aspects of the stone. For instance, in a diamond, you have the four C's. You have your carat weight, which is the number one element. Time impacts how tall you can grow the material. That will directly correlate to the maximum carat weight that you can have for the stone. Next, you would have clarity. The number of inclusions inside the matrix is governed largely by how well the carbon atoms situate on this crystal matrix. And essentially what that does is allows us to say, well, all right, we're okay with lower grade clarity. We're going to grow really fast. And you might be able to get a 1 carat diamond in 2 to 3 weeks. If I really wanted something that has a perfect internal structure, I might slow that down to upwards of 6 to 8 weeks to get a flawless diamond. Typically, to get into the VS and VVS range, you're looking at something about 4 weeks. Looks like we're
Yeah, we
getting a
got
couple more
many.
questions in here.
Yeah, we
So,
got more questions. Mhm.
how much cost does it take to make a diamond? Ultimately, it depends on what size diamond we're talking about. There are obviously fixed costs for operating a facility like this and for the direct air capture and methanation portion. All of these things have kind of a baseline fixed cost with then some additional variable costs depending on how many stones are being produced. And that cost is then amortized. So I can't give you a flat number. It really does dramatically change if we're talking about a 1 carat diamond versus a 5 carat diamond. It's non-linear. If you have specific questions, I can start to talk a little bit about what that looks like, but I can promise it's very difficult because we don't actually know exactly what's going to come out of the machine until it's been grown. We have a pretty good idea. It's a very consistent growing process, but it's never an exact science. The analogy that I like to make is, imagine trying to nail shingles to a roof of a house in the middle of a hurricane. That's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to have a very ordered assembly of these carbon atoms inside a plasma storm. So it's quite a volatile environment inside the chamber, as you'll see here in just a moment when the system is up and running. So there are a lot of variables to consider. And ultimately, we only know once we get out on the other side. I think there's an aspect. Another question here is about electricity for the machine. Essentially, when we talk about energy requirements, every step of the process requires electricity, and what we do is source that electricity from renewable sources. The methanation plant that I just showed, our next plant, is actually located in France, and France has a fairly advantageous renewable heavy grid, but we augment that with solar. So solar power is a major factor powering almost all of the steps that I showed you earlier. With the exception of the upfront direct air capture that was shown, at least in those photos, that is on site at a location that's powered. It's certified carbon negative electricity on top the pyroelectric power plant. It's the Kiso plant in Hinwil, Switzerland. So it's about 25 minutes outside of Zurich. That's one aspect that doesn't require any solar, but is also net carbon negative. So another question came in, what studies have you done? Is a particular diploma required? To operate these machines, it is advantageous if you have a technical diploma. However, there's training that we've been able to do and that the industry writ large has been able to do to bring people in and educate them on how to use these machines without advanced diplomas. Anecdotally, I know of someone who operates a machine like this at a different facility who at once was a bus driver. I myself have an engineering degree. I spent most of my career working in the overlap of consumer products and material science, although that is not requisite to do all of these things. However, I can tell you that all of the different disparate pieces of technology that have been combined in order to allow for this type of alchemy to occur has required a significant amount of upfront engineering and development work with PhDs from countries all over the world. All right, so another question I see that came in a little earlier is, will it reduce the value of the diamond? I'm not sure what you were referring to there. That's for Asta. If you want to clarify on that question, I'm happy to explain further. I see you're typing. I'll wait here just a moment. Oh, I see. So the question is, if we can make diamonds, does that reduce the value? And emphatically, I think the answer is no, for several reasons. I do know the machine behind me is ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to answer this quickly while I also reposition the camera so that you can see the plasma. I do want to show you this, so just bear with me here. Now, as you'll be able to see, inside the chamber, there's a purple glow that's starting to ignite. So we'll turn the lights off in just a moment. In fact, why don't we turn the lights off now? And that way you can see inside. I will also reposition it so that you can see a little bit more closely in here. But that is a beautiful, beautiful glow that you're seeing. That plasma is starting to take shape inside the chamber. But I do want to elaborate on that answer that I was just sharing in terms of value. So the reason we don't believe that this is something that is going to reduce the cost of diamonds is essentially impacted by external market conditions. On mined diamonds, the yield of diamonds coming from the ground is receding. Every year, fewer and fewer diamonds are going to be extracted from the ground because we're simply starting to run out of viable diamond deposits. There is this kind of long-held belief that the large diamond companies have warehouses full of diamonds, and that was true at one point. However, it has not been true for a very, very, very long time. That's a result of new competitors coming into the market. There was a large diamond deposit that was discovered in Russia, which ultimately caused the De Beers organization to lose their monopoly, and the market is much more egalitarian. But between 2017, about 6 years ago, and 2040, we're expecting to see a 50% reduction in the output of diamonds from the ground. And what that means is, according to the law of supply and demand, it's going to act as a really great pricing floor. It's going to help ensure that the value of the diamond does not depreciate beyond a certain point. And in fact, it's only going to go up from here. Second to that, when we talk about diamonds made from carbon captured in the atmosphere, these are the rarest diamonds on planet Earth. In fact, we are not making many of them. This is an exclusive diamond. That's why we're so excited to be a part of this project. Being affiliated with CO Station and bringing some of these rare diamonds into the hands of the community here is really, just so exciting. I see your most recent concept or comment. I love science. I have to say, obviously, I agree. Science and in fact, science and greed ultimately got us into the problem that we're in with respect to climate change. The oil and gas industry playing a large role in that, but science will get us out of that. Science is going to play a pivotal role in helping to solve the climate crisis. And if we can do so while at the same time being able to create beautiful products that don't require our end users to sacrifice and still have the same beauty and the same performance from the goods that they're buying, that really makes me excited. So I do want to zoom in a little bit further, just so that you can perhaps see the orientation of the seeds. In fact, what I might try to do here, sorry for the shaky camera work, it's better to see in the dark here. I'm going to try and also get this up on Discord on my phone so I can zoom in. Let's see here. Now, I might need a bit of a handoff on this device, so hopefully this works smoothly. All right, here we go. Let's see if I can reverse my camera. Let's see here. Sorry, never done this on reversing. Stand behind the machine. There we go. Can you guys see the seeds from here? I'm holding my phone backwards. I'm unable.
It's lagging a bit, but for now we can just see a hole with purple inside. Maybe you can try to flip the camera. That would be amazing.
All right.
Otherwise,
Does anybody know how to turn the camera around in Discord? Because there's no button to do that.
It should be
Here
on the
we go.
top right hand corner. Yeah,
I found it. Thank you so much.
nice.
All right, here we go. Top right hand.
There we go.
Here. It doesn't want to adjust for the brightness. Bit of a challenge. Let's see if I can try one of these lower holes here. Now, this plasma is actually unsafe to look at with the naked eye, usually because it's so bright. It's still kind of in the warm-up phase. Let's see. It's really tough to see, but do you see those little squares at the bottom of the purple gas that's glowing? Kind of in the center of the screen now. Those are the diamond seeds. Slivers and diamond material. Gas up into this chamber. That glowing hot gas is what separates the molecule. Let's see if I can bring the camera a little bit better here. It's very tough to do from this angle. There's an angle. Can you see the seeds here? I don't know if you're able to see that array. If you guys can, drop it in the chat. All right, we can see a square, and there's some more behind it, and it's easier to see with the naked eye. It's actually quite. I'm realizing it's quite hard to see it here with the camera. All right, so I'm going to go back to my other device, and I'm going to turn the lights back on here. All right. So I know I showed a lot there. I want to make sure we have an opportunity to answer any questions you all might have.
We had a question from Asta. I think we already answered this in the previous AMA, but it would be nice to just reset it again. Will this diamond difference from nature diamond? So there have been some recent discoveries that I'm happy to share with the group here that we think are quite exciting. If you remember from your studies in chemistry, we have certain elements that can exist in multiple stable forms. We call those isotopes, right? So the standard form of carbon is the carbon-12 isotope. We just typically call that carbon. It's really, you call out the isotope when it's a non-standard composition, and carbon-13 is another stable form of carbon. Diamonds from the ground, most people think the ones that were forged deep inside the earth, maybe it was coal underneath lots of pressure and lots of heat, and that coal ultimately became a diamond, when in fact it was actually pockets of CO2 that ultimately became diamonds underground. So that the diamonds that we are now producing are actually more identical to natural diamonds than any other lab-grown diamond on planet Earth. And when you do an isotopic analysis of a regular mined diamond versus a regular lab-grown diamond, it's very different. However, when you do an isotopic analysis of one of these diamonds compared against a mined natural diamond, it's the same. So these diamonds are the most identical lab-grown diamonds to the real thing on planet Earth. I see a question just came in. What was my drive for the project? Well, I'll say this. I think diamonds are beautiful, not only physically, but in how they can inspire love, how they can inspire people to understand a little bit more about the science that's at hand here. I think there's a really cool and exciting story to tell there. I am an engineer who's dedicated my life to using science to solve the climate crisis. And if we can do that in a way that the average consumer can appreciate, I think there's a lot of value in it. And so ultimately, that's what inspired the development of the technology and has kept us going. So I see a question asking what the diamond seeds look like. So I actually can show you what one of the seeds looks like right here. So they're very, 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 very small slivers
As you can see, it's very thin. This material is solid diamond, I was trying to explain earlier, it serves as a blueprint, an architectural drawing, if you will, so that when the new carbon atoms land, they know how to order themselves. And you have typically anywhere from maybe 9 to 25 of these seeds in an array, and that array might look something like this when it's done growing. They fuse together. This is a test array, so it's not at full height. You can see it's still rather thin, but this would be sufficient for cutting diamonds that are small, accent stones for a piece of jewelry like this. So you really can do quite a bit in terms of size. A larger 5-carat stone ends up being quite large. So I have one of those to show you today as well. Bear with me here. Okay. So this stone is 5 carats. And I will pull it out so that you can see it a little better outside of the case. But ultimately, those seeds, when they grow, net us out a beautiful, beautiful gemstone product just like this. So that's really what it's all about, getting to this beautiful piece of crystalline carbon. So, what am I most proud of? Well, I mean, I think this project is one that's quite exciting. This is, really first of its kind project. I'm super excited to be affiliated with it. It's been a labor of love getting the science and engineering work to function as designed. It took years to complete. I'll never forget the time I held our first diamond made from air in my hand, and I think that was something that will never leave me in my life. Here in the U.S., we were actually featured on the cover of Time magazine in November, named as one of their best inventions of the year. And I think that was also one of the most exciting professional achievements that I don't think I'll ever forget. But ultimately, there's one other thing that's really exciting. Seeing customers wearing these diamonds and being happy with their purchase and being able to participate in their love story and their journey, and really getting to be playing a small role in the love story that they someday may tell their friends and family and children, and hopefully will never forget. What has been the most challenging aspect along the way? Well, in engineering, it's often the unknowns that present the biggest challenges. You get into a path of development, and you think there are certain things that you're going to run into, and invariably there are things you never expected. There have been many challenges along the way, including getting enough CO2. CO2 extraction from the air it's still a fairly new technology, and that has been at various times the bottleneck. And today it's a bit more mature than it once was. But when we started working on this project, this technology to do this did not exist. So there were some large hurdles that we had to cross in order to get here. So we have a couple more comments getting typed up right now. Of course, Zealous, happy to provide the and tell you more about our backstory anytime you guys want to know.
Ryan, I think you have to send the cover. The picture.
Oh, we can start. Well, I'll tell you, I have. Let's see if I can even do this on here very quickly. Please all bear with me here. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. It's hard to do this while I'm on my video for some reason. My whole computer slows down. Why is this not working? All right, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen one more time and show everyone my desktop background. Because that's what I have saved as my background image. That'll be easier if I just come here and share my screen. Let's see. All right. Can you guys see my desktop?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can see it now.
So you'll see right down here, diamonds made from air. It's right on the cover there.
Wow. Was that an article inside?
Yes, in fact, there was an entire article about inventions that were the best of the year. And when you open, I think it was on the first page. We were prominently featured right there, which was really exciting. And for us, validation, right, from a group that is well respected in the world of publications, and Time Magazine is a well respected international name, so we were pretty excited about that.
Well, that's awesome. It's a milestone.
Certainly was. All right, we've got a couple more comments coming through here. What is the plan for building community on Web3? I don't think I'm the right person to answer that question, but I will comment that I have been personally interested and invested in a number of Web3 and crypto projects going all the way back to 2013. So I was very early in Bitcoin, which has come with some really exciting times and some really challenging times, as the community I'm sure understands, and really leveraging NFT technology for diamonds is something I'm quite excited about. I think there are really great applications here, not only on the retail side, but also in traceability, diamond certifications, and things of that nature. So I do think we're going to see a lot more coming to the market in the ensuing months. Zealous asked, have you been able to get the team that works with you together? I don't know if that's directed directly at me, but I can comment that for our side. The company was started by engineers, ultimately, and that helped. I noticed my screen share is still on. Sorry for that. But I think getting out there and telling our story has attracted really talented and brilliant people, and really great partners and people we're excited to work with, present company included. So here's a great question. Lab-grown diamonds were at the beginning used for industrial purposes because they were not good enough for jewelry. What has changed technically since then, and what made that difference in quality? So the first ever lab-grown diamonds were produced by General Electric in 1954. The primary engineer on that project was a gentleman by the name of H. Tracy Hall. And he had this crazy thought that if they could put enough pressure and enough temperature onto some carbon, that they might be able to have it arranged in crystalline form. And he was absolutely right. They used 1.5 million psi worth of pressure and about 5,000 degrees of temperature to create the first diamonds ever. That was generally from a graphite substrate, a graphite feedstock, not a hydrocarbon gas. And with that, there were more impurities. The process took literally half of a century to refine to get to the point where you could use high pressure and high temperature to make gem grade diamonds. The chamber that you see behind me is a chemical vapor deposition chamber. So this is a bit of a different technology that's used. There's no pressure, it's actually in a vacuum. And instead of using a solid carbon feedstock, it's a gaseous carbon feedstock. That was a big breakthrough in the ability to go from something that was merely for industrial purposes to one that is for jewelry purposes, because the quality was so much better. And typically CVD diamonds are still regarded as a higher quality product than HPHT, although we've seen some movement from HPHT providers where you're starting to get some better quality. The problem with HPH diamonds is they may be coming from certain parts of the world, like Russia, which are unfavorable. There are state-owned interests in the diamond business in Russia, so therefore, diamonds coming from Russia may or may not be helping fund the conflict in Ukraine. These are things that we and the industry at large are paying attention to, and frankly, all of the diamonds that we're talking about today are CVD, not HPHT, but there's a little bit of history for you. Okay, great. A diamond crown would probably be pretty expensive.
Amazing, amazing. Guys, if you have any questions, it's been amazing. I'm impressed by all this. You know, I haven't discovered any of this, and to say it's just insane. The passion you have on this, and also what's behind you is just amazing. We don't get this chance to see this every day, so thank you for coming.
No, this was my pleasure. It's something that it's really passionate about, and I love sharing a little bit of that passion with the community. It excites me. You'd be hard pressed to find a lot of people who will even show you what one of these machines looks like, let alone what it looks like inside the chamber. But we want to be transparent and share and educate the community. We think that that's really something that's very important. People need to understand what we can do with science and how science can be used to bring beauty into this world. I firmly believe that, you know, sustainability and luxury are two sides of one coin, and it's only going to get better from here.
There is a question about which color you prefer.
I prefer no color. I prefer completely colorless diamonds, but actually, if I had to, there are some colors that are hard to make, some colors that are easier to make, and some colors that are not permanent. In fact, you can make red diamonds, but they won't stay red. The color shifts into more of a kind of a light reddish brown, and then you have to actually put it in the oven and it turns red again. A really interesting kind of dynamic at play there. I do have a penchant for like a nice canary yellow diamond if I had to pick a colored diamond. The yellows are extremely hard to produce, so they are exceedingly rare. I think there are some really vibrant blues and pinks that are quite beautiful, which is why you're starting to see those in the market. They're still hard to make. It's harder to make a colored diamond in many regards than it is say like a near colorless diamond. But it's something that is not for everybody. I know some people don't like colored diamonds. I do. Greg, I see your contact. I like pinks. What's really interesting about pink diamonds is they do occur naturally. However, the world's largest diamond mine, the Argyle mine in Australia, which was well known for producing most of the world's supply of natural pink diamonds, closed last year. So this goes to my earlier point of existing diamond mines closing down. Frankly, we think that's a net positive for the planet. What it does mean is there are fewer and fewer pink diamonds on the market. But I do think a nice, vibrant pink diamond is quite beautiful.
Yeah, I see a question about what has been the most difficult task since building Zeogenesis. I feel a bit targeted with that question. I don't even know how to answer it. Everything, I think. It's a lot of fun and it's very challenging. And I think when you are a Web2 person, you're kind of not used to be live. And when you're in Web3, you're live. And I think that's the most challenging part, is that you're kind of indirect. It's like moving from a movie production onto a theater scene. And so I think that is the most actually challenging part, but it's also the most fun part.
I love that analogy.
Well, I think I think it's quite the way I feel it. In the Web2 business, you can calmly produce your stuff and put it online, and with Web3, you're kind of live, as we are today, but also live in the chat.
Yep. There's a question, how long did it take you to plan the bridge from Web 2 to Web 3? So that's probably aimed at you as well.
Yeah, Marianne, I think if you want to answer this.
To bridge from Web 2 to Web 3, I think it's like, I think you need to kind of have spent quite a lot of time in the Web 3 in order to be able to bridge. because you have to first kind of be part of Web3, and you have to be part of Web2, and then you kind of bridge it. You can't just be in Web2 and then decide I'm going to go into Web3. So I think that what helped with CEO Genesis a lot is that I spent like a year just having fun, being, like anybody in the space, collecting and making mistakes and being scammed and rugged and having a lot of fun and going up and going down, and just developing a sense of feeling for what I like, what I don't like, what do the Web2 brands do wrong, what I don't want to do when the day we go. And so right now I'm kind of hanging the two hats. I still have to kind of run Courbet, so it's a bit of a schizophrenic business to have these two operating modes, but it's a lot of fun.
I see a question. When in Place Vendôme? So I was there in, what was that, February? I think when I was there last. Our methanation facility is outside of the city center of Paris, probably by about 30 minutes outside of the city center. So I'm over there quite a bit, and I think the question, if I could allude to, something that excites me, it doesn't exist yet, but will exist at some point in the future, I hope, is the opportunity to make diamonds from carbon captured in certain places. I can envision a world where diamonds are made from carbon captured in Place Vendôme. Wouldn't that be something special?
Yeah, absolutely. We just have to kind of hire a big truck to hide the box. And and I think to the question, next time you come to Place Vendôme, we certainly have to organize like a meetup, so most people possible that would happen to be nearby can meet you in person.
That would be very exciting.
Great. Is there any more questions?
I see there's one that says, like, you plan to launch second collection. Is that directed to Ryan or me? No, it's like, I suppose it's a second collection. My answer is, of course. This is just the beginning. As everybody says in the Web3 space, like, this is just the beginning. I'm just saying it again. But it's true. I mean, we're starting, so we're not gonna stop with CEO Genesis. It's our Genesis collection.
Greg has a question. What do you say to people who criticize lab-grown diamonds for their residual value contrary to natural diamonds, which tends to hold their value? I have an answer to this. Marion, if you have an answer to that, I'd be interested to hear what you think as well. There are investment-grade natural diamonds from the ground. Most natural diamonds don't qualify as what the industry would consider to be investment grade, and this notion that you can retain a significant amount of value in diamonds is one that I don't necessarily subscribe to. Mind diamonds, if you buy one and walk right down the street to a different jewelry store and try to sell it, I'd be amazed at you if you were able to recoup a significant amount of your value. I think you have to understand that if you say use a diamond to propose to somebody, the value in that diamond transcends just its monetary value. There's a lot of personal value and sentimental value that then comes with that. I proposed to my wife years ago. Her diamond is nice. It's not the most beautiful diamond, and she would never let me upgrade it, never, because of the sentimental value. She would never let me sell it because of the sentimental value. So for me, the value question is really an interesting one that I think is often used by the entrenched diamond mining interests to discredit lab-grown diamonds, which are in every measure better for people, better for planet. And for that reason, that's why I'm fully in this camp.
Well, and I normally kind of answer also that it's a very good answer. which will actually, I think, complement what I normally say, which is that, when you talk about add value, are you talking about pricing or are you talking about value? Because those are two different things. But let's suppose that you talk about pricing, because that's what people use to measure value most often. The mined diamond business have there's so many margins in there between the producer and the jewelry brand. You could have up to 12 middlemen, and those 12 middlemen all need to have their margins. When it comes to lab-grown diamonds, you basically have a production that would probably cost more per carat to produce than to extract for mined diamonds, but you have a very few middlemen. Like, you could have one or maximum two, sometimes none. And so this whole new business that's being constructed since the last 20 years is built in a much more efficient way, and can actually, despite the produced initial value being higher, can price it to a more efficient price to the end user. I think this is putting pressure on the mined diamond business and squeezing their margins across the all 12 layers. And so more and more actors among those 12 layers are switching over to lab-grown diamonds. So that's one kind of thought to keep in mind. The other part is that today the extraction of mined diamond is going down, and there's going to be a point where even most players have to stop using mined diamonds, because they won't be able to produce standardized collections with the same sizes across, because there won't just be enough diamonds. And that point will be a point when things pivot over to lab-grown diamonds. When that moment is reached, that's like the hypothesis. Those that normally try to control prices, which are the oligopoly, Rio Tinto, Alrosa, and De Beers, for mined diamonds, they're going to try to do the same thing for lab-grown diamonds for patents. We already know that one of the biggest patent holder within lab-grown diamonds is already De Beers. So I think we're going to see lab-grown diamonds actually going up, simply because of this phenomena, the desire to control supply, and also combined with an increased demand. And it's like a hugely increased demand for lab-grown diamonds. On the wholesale market in the US today, 50% of transactions of diamonds are actually made for lab-grown diamonds, which is a crazy high. Much more long and complicated answer.
So Gag asked, is diamond the only ore we can make in a laboratory? What about emerald, for example? There are other ways to produce other gemstones. However, those gemstones aren't made from carbon, so not through this process. But lab-grown sapphire exists. There are several synthetic gemstones that can be produced, each with a different process, different science, and a different environmental footprint.
Yes, I think we went all around the questions. Is there anyone? Otherwise, I think we can. There's someone writing. Let's see. Maybe one last question for the road. Oh, it was really great. Okay. Fair enough.
Well, if I can jump in, I'd just like to thank everybody for being so interested in this and allowing me to walk you through the process a little bit more than I think we did last time, and showing you some cool stuff. So thank you for having me.
I mean, thank you for joining. I think everyone has been so happy to.
Yeah, thank you,
to listen
Ryan.
to all this.
Super interesting. Very interesting to see the carbon capture part.
It was my pleasure.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
See you on the
Bye.
chat. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you. Bye bye.